take 365 times 1, and basically what do you get? You get 365. But if you take 365 times 1.01, you get an additional 36.5%. And I think that 0.01%, if you can just focus, the point is if you can just focus on improving 0.01% a day, right? Over the course of a year, you're going to be 36% better. And I think
I put on for my soldiers, though they had to swear me in. Young, humble motherfucker, but my hustle arrogant. Got it all off the muscle like I'm damn Bilzerian. Make this trap great again. I'm a proud American.
Welcome back to Life, Liberty, and Real Talk. Today, we got a special guest, Mr. Kody Fitzjerrells, president and founder of Omni Digital Group. This man is just the epitome of a self-made man. Dropped out of college at 19, joined the corporate rat race, was a sales guy, was a hell of a producer, but he wanted more than a six-figure salary, so he said, screw this, branched off, started his own companies. Now we're here absolutely crushing it. I work for him. We have a couple business ventures on the side as well. Kody, awesome to have you on the show today.
Yeah, excited to be here, Luke. It's a good topic that you picked today, and I'm excited to talk about it because I think, it's cliche where you say like, oh, especially right now, but I think just this topic is it really the key to being successful or unsuccessful in life in anything you do. So not just say business, which we talk about a lot, but yeah, I'm excited about the topic.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk a lot of just mentality, mindset, and more specifically, victim mentality. I feel like in our culture as of late, there's been kind of a huge push of this victim mentality, and I don't know where it came from, but honestly, it's detrimental to anybody. So I mean, the first thing that you got to think about is just like you have to control your own mind and your own mindset in order to win. It doesn't start with anybody else. It starts with you. In order to do anything in life, in order to succeed in life, you kind of got to just handle your own shit first. And what do I mean by that? I mean, if you can't handle regular everyday human issues like a problem with a coworker, a problem with a client, a problem with a girlfriend, boyfriend, spouse, friend, whatever it is, if you can't, if you take those things and you just dump them on other people and you don't take ownership for them, you don't try and fix them yourself, then honestly, you have zero chance of winning in any aspect of life. Everyone has problems. Most people fold when things get a little tough, and I think part of it, Kody, I don't know if you feel the same way, but part of it is due to a lot of this being in our society. But if you're gonna win in life, you're gonna have to be self-reliant to a certain point. And not anyone else, but you has to understand your problems, address your problems, attack your problems, and solve them mostly on your own. And, I'm not saying you can't confide in anybody. I'm not saying don't go see a therapist if you need help. I'm not saying don't go talk to a friend. But what I am saying is you can't just dump all your problems on that person and expect them to solve it for you. You should be able to lean on others for support, but then go out and actually fix what you're dealing with and figure it out. And, that's just a little bit of a background, but what I want to get into today is people that put their identity in this victim mentality. When your identity is tied up in your struggles, you kind of get put in this never-ending loop of just what's wrong in my life right now and how do I tell people that I'm struggling and how do I get their assurance of everything's okay, you're going through a tough time, relax type of thing. And I think that's very detrimental.
Yeah, I think you and I talked about it the other day in that, I think the key to just about anything in life is clarity. I think it's first defining like let's take one step back. So let's define like what in our opinion, like what a victim mentality is. So like how would you define just in one sentence what a victim mentality is?
In my mind, a victim mentality is somebody who lives their life and identifies themselves through what is wrong and what they're struggling with. And
Hmm.
what I mean by that is, everything that you talk about, everything that you post on social media, everything, you're constantly being what you might consider truthfully as vulnerable. But at the end of the day, if you're constantly saying, like, oh, this is wrong in my life, this is wrong in my life, this is wrong in my life, this is wrong in my life,
Yeah.
and looking for that sympathy from other people day in and day out, that's that victim mentality that gets you stuck in that never ending loop. And if everything you put out in the world is sympathy bullshit, you're never gonna win.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, I had two things that came to mind in what you just said. Jim Rohn talks about this. It's one of my favorite quotes. It's that so many people are quick to want to fix their circumstances, whatever is happening in their lives, but they're unwilling to actually fix themselves. Because I think so many times, like like if you actually assess what is going on in your life, 95% of the time, it's because of a choice, an unwillingness to take a responsibility that you made. And I think too, to your point as well, what you focus on, like just you know, take and I know it's like a not a law or rule, but like what you focus on tends to expand. And I think if you're listening to this, if you took the time to like assess, okay, the last like five things, let's just call them, unfair, bad circumstances, however you want to look at it, that happened in your life. I think if you really took a step back and assessed it, you probably caused it based on your behavior, based on the decisions you made, the choices you made, the habits that you developed over time. Let's take one just for example, the lack of say like quality relationships in your life. Maybe it was because you neglected, or maybe you didn't stay in touch, or maybe you weren't intentional with planning, how that relationship was going to be successful. I was just listening to something coming into the office today. Intentionality is one of my words for 2021. It's one of my favorite words, because in order to be successful with your money, your relationships, your health, if you're not intentional about saving money, like, yes, this is exactly how much I'm going to set aside. This is how often I'm going to go to the gym. This is how often my spouse and I are going to do stuff. You're going to fall back into that victim mentality of that I don't have any money because of this. I don't have any good health because of this. And you'll start to blame other people too. And that doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah, no, and I think it's a huge problem. Like when you attach yourself to that identity, and I mean, we've all done it. I've gone through stretches in my life where I do fall back into that woe is me victim mentality as well. And it is detrimental. But when you fall back into that identity, the identity of a victim, of not being able to overcome, an identity of constant struggle stories, then you yourself have created a scenario in your life which you can never overcome the problem that you claim to have, because you put your identity in it. When you're constantly just, hey, I'm struggling, I'm struggling, I'm struggling, I'm struggling, I'm struggling, and that's everything that you're talking about, you are creating a ceiling for yourself where you're never gonna be able to overcome that. And it's how you get stuck in what I want to call like a hamster wheel. It's going to seem like you're always moving. It's
What
going
is
to
a loop?
seem like you're always doing things, but you're never going to make that step forward.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge problem. And when people look and complain, a lot of times it's, oh, I'm putting in all this work, but nothing's happening. Well, are you really doing the things you need to do, or are you just being busy and not actually taking the steps forward necessary, because all you're talking about is what is happening that went wrong in your life?
Yeah. I think the other thing I would really encourage people to do, because I've noticed this just at many different times in my life, assess the information that's going into your mind. I mean, the basic example that I always give that just paints a very clear picture. is that let's just take health for a second. What goes in, is what you get, right? Food wise. And you can see it physically. But I think mentally people struggle with it because nobody is, just for the sake of an example, nobody is overweight or fat in the mind, right? But I think if you assess the information that you're consuming and the people that you're around, which is also consuming, I think that will really paint a good picture as far as the direction that you're going, or maybe why you think the way that you do, whether it's positive or negative. I think, like even again, just saying it myself, I'll look at times where it's like maybe I've had an off week this week, or at some point in my life, and it's like if I really look back at the information I was consuming, it probably wasn't as good as it should have been. And I don't know about you, but the same way that when I consume quality food, you feel good physically. I feel like the same when I consume quality content, I feel good mentally. And when I don't consume quality food, I don't feel good physically. And when I don't consume quality content, I don't feel good mentally. So I think it's just a really good tactical thing of check yourself and look at the information that you're consuming, because maybe that needs to change. And chances are, for anybody that has a victim mentality or is just not where they want to be in life, I would venture to say that about 100% of those people need to change the information that they're consuming.
No, I agree. And I mean, the truth is, at the end of the day, you have problems just like everybody else has problems. You may not hear other people's problems because they aren't bitching about them in the same way that you might be. But just because you are vocal about something, it doesn't mean it's unique. And I'm not saying your struggles don't matter, because at the end of the day, they're very real, the things that people deal with. But it all boils down to, how are you viewing yourself? And that's the root cause of this. If you are viewing yourself as a victim, and as somebody who is just putting all of their worth into the struggles that they have on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis, whatever it may be, then you're not going to see yourself in a good enough light to actually make a change. You have to change how you see yourself before your situation changes. Instead of seeing yourself as this perpetual victim who has all these fucking problems all the time, start envisioning yourself as somebody who's overcoming these struggles, or start talking about how and what you've overcome in your life. Don't focus on the downfalls, focus on the times that you actually did overcome something. And instead of continuously just piling on your bullshit and just feeling bad for yourself, because and we talked about this yesterday or the day before, how does that serve you in any way?
Doesn't at
when
all.
when you see yourself in a positive light, when you focus on the things that you have overcome in your life, because everybody's overcome some sort of difficulty or another. David Goggins preaches this. It's called the cookie jar. Fill up your cookie jar with everything that you've faced in your life that you have overcome. And when you're in a period of struggle, and a period where your life might be on a downturn, reach into that cookie jar and visualize the times which you did overcome those struggles, and let that build you and let that pull you out of what you're dealing with right now. And I think that's the biggest thing. How does it serve you to focus so much on your downfalls? Because in reality, it really doesn't. I don't care if the problem you're dealing with is, oh, I a $20 bill fell out of my pocket. Dang, I don't have $20. Or, your best friend just died. But at the end of the day, if you're focusing on that, how does that serve you? You're never going to overcome any of it if you're focused on what's happening, not how to change what's happening.
Yeah. Well, and I think in a chapter I read of a book the other day called Ego is the Enemy, it talked about doing versus talking. And I think, if you just take the basic example of when you have a victim mentality, chances are you're probably doing a lot of talking. You're not doing a lot of doing, if that's even a kind of sentence there, but you're not really taking a lot of action. And I think even again, looking at in my own life, when I've had those instances where I'm doing a lot, maybe not necessarily about a challenge or an issue or victim mentality, but when I'm doing a lot more talking than taking action, 90% of the time it's because I'm scared. And then the other 10% of the time it's maybe because I don't know how to quite do it yet. I don't know what step to take. Um, but I think even, just another action item outside of probably like the biggest one is just changing the information that you consume is just, taking a first step. Maybe it's just not talking negative for a whole day. And it's hard, like, personally, to not talk negative to yourself, so don't even start there. Maybe just stop with the gossip. Like, if you're bad at gossip, or you constantly bring up current events that are just, oh, woe is me, the world is ending, just don't talk about them for a day, and then go a week, and then go a month, and just play a game with yourself and see how long you can go without just talking negatively. Because here's the deal, and I don't remember, he's a performance coach that works with the University of Alabama, but he talked about a study where when you verbalize negativity versus just keep it internal. It's some work they did with the University of Alabama football team where, during like spring practice or summer practice, they would literally just tell them, just don't verbalize how hot it is, how crappy it is, whatever, like just the environment, anything. Just don't verbalize it. And I think if we all just focused on to just not speak about our situations and our problems, I think it'd go a long way in just our peace of mind and our mentality overall.
Yeah, no, and it's not gonna be an overnight switch. I mean, when you find yourself in this never-ending loop, it's not like you can just snap your fingers and all of a sudden you're better again. I mean, it's a process, just like everything is. It's gonna take building different habits. Something that I like to think about to just keep reminding me of this stuff is, millions of people have the same problems as you, and have overcome them with probably more difficult situations than you. And I'm not, again, not saying that your struggles and your issues and what's going on in your life doesn't matter, because it does. And at the end of the day, it is very real when you're in them. But every time I kind of get in that groove, I just think about the fact that somebody always has it worse than you. And someone who has it worse than you out there is also overcoming their struggles. So why can't you? I mean, it boils down to just mindset and mental toughness. And I think next week I'm going to do an episode solely on mental toughness. But all you're doing by bitching and moaning and complaining about your situation is you're trapping yourself. And I hate to see it, because it's so, I mean, it sounds mean, but like it's the damn truth. Nothing positive comes from playing the victim. Sometimes life sucks and you got to do your best to just move the fuck on and grow from the situation. You'll be better. And it starts, honestly, in humility. If you're humble about it and you can admit to yourself, I am focusing too much on this, I am putting my identity in what I'm struggling with. It takes that humility to then build the confidence to take a step out of it. And I think, I mean, it's been a huge problem in society itself, because our society nowadays perpetuates the victim mentality. But you gotta just snap out of the mainstream, and that it's not mainstream nowadays to not focus on your struggles and go get sympathy from everybody else. But if you just are humble about it and admit to yourself, you know what? I do have this problem. I do put a lot of weight and a lot of my identity on what I'm dealing with, then you can start taking those baby steps to overcoming it. And at the end of the day, your life really honestly isn't harder than anybody else's. You just want to pretend it is to get sympathy. And that's the harsh reality. It's the truth. But if you accept the truth and you're honest with yourself and you're humble enough to say, you know what, I'm kind of being a little bitch right now, then you can take those steps forward. And, you know, I know this because I've been through this in my life. I've had stretches of my life where I've focused too deeply on the things that are happening that are negative in my life. You know, I lost one of my best friends in life, you know, and he took his own life a couple of years ago, and I went through a dark period of time where I used that as an excuse for the reason that I wasn't progressing and I got depressed and all this stuff. And it took quite a while, but eventually I realized it's not serving me at all to keep living in this mindset of this is the reason why I'm not progressing. You know, when I was able to be humble about it, take a step back and say, you know what, this thing happened in life and it sucked. But instead of focusing on how it's bringing me down, I'm going to focus on how I can overcome it. And ever since then, you know, my mentality has just been so much better. I've been happier, and I don't make excuses of why I'm not doing X, Y, Z. I'm honest with myself. And if I'm not doing it, I say, you know what? I know I'm not doing what I need to be doing. And I start getting it done. But it starts with how you view yourself at the end of the day. And I think that's the biggest problem. People just don't hold themselves high enough in praise. People look down on themselves too much. And it starts with being humble and admitting that.
Yeah. Well, and I would say too, like, kind of to the how does it serve you? I mean, if you really boil it down, I think what you really have to do is you have to look yourself in the mirror, and you have to realize that if you want to advance your life forward, um, it's just completely up to you. And you have to figure out ways, whether it's getting around new people, consuming different information. I mean, Eric Thomas, I don't know, I heard this like 8 years ago where he says, uh, you know, information changes situations, or new information changes situations. And I think you just, you have to, because your mentality has gotten you up to where you're at in life right now in every key area. You've gotten there because of your mentality, period. It's nobody else's fault. It's literally nobody else's fault, because you, at the end of the day, had to make the decisions. And to what Luke was saying earlier, there has been people with worse situations than you, better situations than you, that have gotten farther, less far. It's really all up to the individual. And I think, if we're really honest with ourselves, I think part of the reason that we want to have a victim mentality is that we're scared that maybe if we actually did get out of it, um, that we would define the what actual failure could look like in our lives. If we got out of having that victim mentality, we actually had to go put in the work. There's a chance for real failure. Um, and I think that scares a lot of people, because that's actual reality. The potential to fail at something and for it to not go well the first time. And in my opinion, failure is just completely giving up. Whereas if something just doesn't go right the first time, you can call it a failure, but it's not a true failure unless you give up completely. But yeah, I think you just have to ultimately look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself that if my situation is going to get better, I am going to physically have to do something. And just for some reason, so many people just don't want to hear that. And I think, who really knows why? I mean, I think for so many people, they lack, for whatever reason, that ability to just have enough belief to see that they are the solution. And again, I would really encourage you, because this is the only way, in my opinion, this is the only way I know how to do it, is you have to change the information that you're consuming. I don't even know of any other way, because you have to plant, new information in your mind that can create new habits, that ultimately those habits is what's going to get you out of the situation. Because nothing you do today is going to change what you are directly tomorrow. It's kind of like, if you eat McDonald's today, is it going to kill you? No. But if you eat McDonald's every day for 5 years for every meal, I mean, it could theoretically, right? Or anything that is junk like that. The point is it's what you do daily that's going to compound over time. So it's basically those daily actions that you take, that you may not see the effect today, as far as your situation changing, your mindset changing today, but it's going to be that compound effect over time.
Yeah, and I think that's a great place to wrap up. But I would just challenge everybody listening to do a self evaluation and
Great advice.
really look in deep into yourself and look at all the issues arising in your life that maybe, you've been struggling with and complaining about habitually, and just take a step back and think for a second, what is the core root of this issue, and be humble about it and be able to use that reflection to admit, you know what, I'm not taking charge. And then once you do that, lay out a plan, baby steps. Maybe you don't like where your health is at, and you're making all these excuses about why you haven't been working out. Go get into the gym 1 day a week. And then once that becomes a habitual act and you get in that groove, go 2 days a week, then 3 days a week, and then maybe skip out on fast food just one time. And then the next week, skip out on fast food twice. And then the next week, 3 times, until these things become habits. And I promise you, it'll be a slow process. It will. Like Kody said, these things that you do daily don't affect what happens the next day, but they affect what happens the next month, the next year, the next 10 years. It compounds. Just start doing the little things, even by 10% extra a week. If you go to the gym and you run a mile today, well, next week, run 1.1 miles. The next week, try 1.5. The next week, try 1.2. If you make these small incremental steps that are very doable, eventually you'll see positive change over time. And I just challenge everybody listening to really take inventory of their struggles and look at themselves in a different light. Look at yourself in the light of what you've overcome and what you've accomplished, rather than, what you're struggling with. Maybe take inventory of your downfalls and the places you lack in life, and don't get down on them, but figure out how you're going to progress every single day towards where you want to be in those areas. And it's a slow process, but I promise you, if you keep doing it day in and day out, you will see such a positive change in your life. Yeah. You got anything else?
I'll ask, I saw this yesterday. I thought it was kind of cool. I'll ask people to do one thing. Take 365 times 1. And basically, what do you get? You get 365. But if you take 365 times 1.01, you get an additional 36.5%. And I think that 0.01%, if you can just focus, the point is if you can just focus on improving 0.01% a day, right? Over the course of a year, you're going to be 36% better. And I think people just, they think that what they can do in a day to improve their situation, it doesn't really mean a lot. Where I think it's that, like Luke was saying, like I was saying, it's that compound effect over time. So focus on just that 0.01%. How can you get 0.01% better today?
I love that. If you like the show, if you feel like you got something out of it, share it with people that you think need to hear the same message, because I'm never going to monetize this. I have no intention on making money off this show. I just truly want to help people grow in the ways that I've seen growth in my life. And I want people to just absolutely dominate. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Life Liberty RT. Until next week, go out and crush it.